I think that the community basically came into being around the San Marcos River. So if it wasn't here, there basically wouldn't be a community to begin with. We see the San Marcos River, we look at it, and as clear and as fast flowing as it is, it's hard to imagine that it's very polluted.
San Marcos River is the central part of the city of San Marcos, and historically, 10,000 years ago, the Clovis culture started living in and along the river, and since then, Spaniards, French, the Germans settled here. It's just been a history of people living along the river because it's clear, warm, attractive. It met basic human needs historically, and now it's aesthetically pleasing, recreation. It's a real spiritual experience for the community. My organization, I work for the City of San Marcos and I work for Texas State University. Those two entities are signatories on a federal permit that allows us to do things like recreate on the river, which might harm endangered species, but we're doing things like we're taking out the invasive fish in the river, the invasive plants, we're putting in natives, we're trying to clean up the watershed in different areas of town, we're restoring riparian landscapes, we're stabilizing creek banks that lead to the river, we have litter contractors. We're doing a lot of different things to help protect the habitat in the river.
It's amazing when we do our hotspot cleanups once a month and we talk about the micro litter and we're saying, okay, we want you to pick up everything including micro litter. The volunteers are like, I had no idea there was that many cigarette butts, or there was that many bun wrapper twist ties, or when we do graffiti and we're doing a graffiti cleanup, people are like, I had no idea there was that much graffiti until it's brought to their attention. So really it's just, they just aren't aware, and bringing that awareness is what's very satisfying.
People don't realize that the way they live, the way they build their homes, the ways apartment buildings, stores, commercial venues are built, has a huge impact on the litter. So impervious cover, which is a driveway, a rooftop, a street, when water hits impervious cover, it doesn't soak in. It runs directly to the nearest water body, carrying all the pollutants with it. It doesn't get clean before it hits the river. And so we can do little things in our lives that are relatively inexpensive that can turn that around. And I don't think people realize that. Come work with us. We do have loads of Texas State students that do, and we love it. We couldn't do what we do without the university. But I would love to see different parts of the community that work hard and their lives are very full, but I would love to see them spend a little bit of time with us and learn more about how to help the river.
It's our first group planning meeting for the symposium and for the ecological outreach that we do at the fair or the festival. So we set up a big tent with a bunch of different booths from local organizations that are protecting the river and the watershed and educating, informing, and working with people. The group that I founded and one of the few leaders of is the Eyes of the San Marcos River, and we do hands-on outreach. If it's a city park, we go out and we hand out trash bags and talk to people about city park rules. And then if we're downstream in the Martindale area, we collect beer cans and trash from tubers as they go by, so it limits their opportunity to litter or to accidentally lose things in the river.
I'm with the San Marcos Lions Club. I've been a past president, been a member for many years, and we enjoy having the tube rental operations at the river, which is a fundraiser. And we are able to utilize the funds to support about 50 different organizations that are nonprofit, that help with those that are in need.
And I'm the executive director of the San Marcos River Foundation. We've been around for about 33 years, and we protect the flow, the purity, and the natural beauty of the San Marcos River. And we've done this in many ways over the years. Many years ago, besides river cleanups and the normal type of river education, we also worked on various permit protests through administrative type hearings to get the major discharges into the San Marcos River cleaned up?
Well, the San Marcos River is all of us. We have certain control over certain portions. There are other portions that people are looking into now about extending the conservation efforts. We want to be a part of that. We want to be in support of it, but we also want to take care of the first part of the river and making sure, because that's the true treasure, that's what's open to the general public at this point.
I'm part of the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment, which is part of Texas State University. They're kind of a multidisciplinary research organization, and of course, the name says it all. They're interested in keeping sustainable water resources for people and for the environment at large. So I'm the manager of the Glass Bottom Boats. So I teach and manage our hourly staff, including a lot of student workers, on the operation, maintenance, and interpretation of the lake from the Glass Bottom Boats. When I first came to Texas State, I learned about the river and saw the park that was available to the students, and I thought it was a remarkable place. You know, I'm actually from Austin, so we have something kind of similar there with Barton Springs and Barton Creek. What the university and the city had done with the river here, the kind of initial stuff they did to put all the concrete by the banks at Sewell Park, whatever the practices might be today that would be a little bit different about like removing all the natural vegetation from the edge of the river, I thought that it was kind of a cool idea, because they'd come in and they'd taken this like sort of naturally clean flowing body of water and turned it into sort of like this channelized swimming pool. It's a really sort of varied and diverse river. There's so many different kinds of fish and wildlife that you see, and there's so many different things you can do. You know, you can tube the first stretch of it, you can fish, you can kayak, you can swim. So, it's a river that's got it all. It's a pretty cool place. Obviously, there's a big monitoring system set up. All the water that comes out of the springs and flows into the river, one of the big things the Meadows Center is involved with is in basically monitoring the quality of that water. We watch for any changes, of course. Even though the water here is so clear, it has been identified by TCEQ as basically sort of like a water system of concern, because our area is growing so fast. You've got to have the community value a resource in order to sort of as a group decide to protect it, right? And so we want to give people who are maybe future stakeholders, like school kids or people in the area, a positive experience related to the Edwards Aquifer and the San Marcos River, so that they'll hopefully value its protection. When you educate people about their resources, they're able to make better decisions. So it becomes less abstract when you get an actual view of the resource that you're trying to protect. And in Central Texas, the Edwards Aquifer is kind of this abstract thing, but here you can come and you can see, you can look down into the water from a boat, and there are these, enormous fissures in the rock at the bottom of the lake where all this water is shooting up, and that's like looking at the top of the aquifer.
You're each about as powerful as the sink in your kitchen or in the bathroom, say on full blast, but there's definitely over a couple hundred of them in this very area.
So you have them doing research here in San Marcos about the springs in the lake and the river that are about, basically finding out everything we can about this water system, gathering every piece of information that's out there that then can be sort of collated and brought together and then used to make decisions that keep our water supplies clean and clear and flowing. Every community in Central Texas has some effect on the spring flow out of this aquifer and into this river. This river in our that flows through campus and flows through the city is actually the coalescing of water from a 4,000 square mile drainage. So it could be, almost out 100 miles west of San Antonio. There's water that falls on the ground and then comes back out of the ground in San Marcos. There's water that falls in South Austin that comes back out of the ground in San Marcos, and then like everywhere in between. Then there are things that are related to how we particularly use the river around here. So you have, cut fishing line. That's a big thing. Plastic bags and six-pack rings are a big thing they find out here. Of course, confetti and glitter is something that's been on the radar lately. That's been a big thing found in the water. And then, of course, you've got all your various drink containers, disposed drink containers of all sorts. And that's all related to like river recreation activity, basically. And so it's, for one thing, it's sort of like, okay, well, this is cool. This means that a lot of people are using the river and are, kind of maybe valuing it a little bit. Maybe not in exactly the way that we would like, because they're leaving litter behind, but it's evidence of people using the resource that's there available to them. And maybe if we're just a little bit smarter about it and a little more like conscionable about it, that'd be good.